So I'm back again to talk about Florida again, but then we have to slap on another entity, and that is PragerU. Now, I've gone on record before to tell people that PragerU is extremely anti-black. Any black person or black identified individual who was attached to PragerU is definitely a part of the Sambo sector. Now, it's interesting that Black Light Revelations and myself just recently did an over an hour long video, and shout out to everybody who watched it, about how they're going to implement in schools down in Florida how slavery was a benefit, or how black people, I should say, benefited from slavery as far as the descendants of American chattel slavery, or those who were in slavery, how they benefit while they were slaves, even though we debunked that whole thing. Now, interestingly enough, a few days later after they do that, they allow PragerU, of all entities and organizations, to say that they're going to provide teaching materials, and I put that in quotations, into Florida public schools. Now, it's interesting enough that a lot of these individuals talk about they want to put out truth and, anything that's not considered to be lies, but they just lied about how slaves benefited during slavery, or black people benefited during slavery, which is a complete and utter lie. Now you're about to have PragerU, that's ran by Dennis Prager, who is extremely anti-black himself and had some comments about slavery. I think last year, I did a video talking about that, giving teaching materials. I'm curious as to what those teaching materials are. So I'm actually on this website called truthout.org, and it was posted July 25th, 2013. And the name of the article says, Florida will allow far-right PragerU materials in public schools. PragerU, a far-right organization that purports to create educational content, has been approved to provide Florida classrooms with quote-unquote learning materials next year, despite not being accredited. Now, for those of y'all who don't know what that definition of accredited is, it means of a person, organization, or course of study officially recognized or authorized. In other words, PragerU has no standing to be giving anybody any type of learning materials. All you got to do is look at one video of a PragerU, and you already know that they are not to be trusted with anything that they put out there. PragerU is basically, and I don't know which one has been along longer than the other, but they are literally another version of Fox News. You can only take what they say with a grain of salt, and I mean the very smallest grain of salt, if you even take it with a grain of salt at all. So they're not even accredited, yet they're being approved and allowed to give learning materials to public schools, but they're supposed to be teaching truth. Yet they want to tell black people and insult our intelligence by saying how black people benefited from slavery. I guess in their mind and somewhere in the four corners of their head, that's a smart and intelligent thing to do. The company, which was founded in 2009, okay, so this is younger than Fox News, by right-wing radio host Dennis Prager, has pushed anti-immigrant theories, downplayed the role of racism in U.S. history and modern society, embraced Christian nationalism, disputed climate change, and expressed doubts about inequalities based on gender, race, and sexuality. The company's content frequently promotes capitalist and imperialist ideology. On Monday, PragerU announced that Florida approved the organization's children-based brand, PragerU Kids. Oh God. So now they're trying to get to the kids, to be an quote-unquote educational vendor in the state, allowing teachers and school districts to use materials geared toward children in their lesson plans. Florida is the first state in the country to approve PragerU Kids materials for educational use, the company said. According to an email the organization sent to the Daily Beast, PragerU Kids lessons were found to be in compliance with Florida's revised civics and government standards. I bet they were. And all of that was approved by Ron the Snowflake. Again, he said Florida is the place where the woke goes to die. This, in his eyes, is anti-woke. Basically anti-black. I can only imagine what's going to be in this so-called curriculum. Again, They're not accredited by anything. Yet you're going to put that into the schools as some kind of a learning practice, not actual history or anything that can be backed by facts or stats, but just something in there because it'll bring comfort to the PC kids that are there. This is how they're fighting it. They're just going to they're going to take out truth and feed them lies. I'm not surprised by that. And this is Florida, by the way. Let me continue. Those standards have faced widespread criticism as they promote blatant lies about U.S. history. Recently announced change in curriculum, for example, requires teachers to tell students that enslaved black people, quote unquote, personally benefited from the institution of slavery. It will be up to teachers to decide whether or not to use materials. A spokesperson for the company said if they're smart, hopefully they don't. This fall, in schools across America, students will be watching PragerU videos in their classrooms as states officially make PragerU an approved educational resource, the company said in a press release. States. So Florida seems to be the testing ground. Of course, it's Florida. But I always tell you, I believe in the domino effect. When one domino falls, the rest will fall. So one out of 50 have fallen, there will be 49 more. But let me read that again. It says this fall, as in less than a month. In schools across America, students will be watching PragerU videos in their classrooms as states officially make PragerU an approved educational resource. Mind you, at the beginning of the article, it says they're not even accredited, yet they approved it as an educational resource. This is the same state again that said that black people benefited from slavery. So we see what they're doing. They at this point, they aren't hiding it anymore. This is their coming out party. It's actually, but the parade is still ongoing. PragerU Kids advertises itself as providing content for your child's mind to fight the leftist lies. Much of its content aims to indoctrinate young children with far-right nationalist views on Christianity, gender, immigration, and economics, and basically create little versions of themselves. This is how the cycle continues, because remember, they probably know we're going to be on our way out soon, but we got to keep the indoctrination going. These are the same people that love to claim up and down to not make everything about race. What the hell are they doing right here? Again, they talk out of both sides of their neck every single time, open their mouth, and lies, diarrhea of the mouth just spews out every single time. Lessons frequently omit or change historical facts to further a right-wing agenda. In one video, for example, a man dressed as Uncle Sam quizzes children on the Electoral College, wrongly stating that one of the benefits of the system is that it keeps candidates from only campaigning to states with large populations. That claim, which is often pushed by conservatives to justify maintaining an electoral system that largely benefits Republicans, is overstated. If candidates only campaign to large states today under a popular vote model, it would be incredibly difficult for them to win in just those areas, as they'd have to win 100% of the 8 most populated states in the country to exceed a 50% vote threshold. Because nearly 1 in 5 US voters reside in rural areas, such a strategy will likely alienate voters, giving an incredible advantage to their opponents. The video also disregards one of the main reasons the Electoral College was created: to appease states where slavery was legal. Indeed, the system still disenfranchises black voters, according to the Brennan Center for Justice's Wilfred U. Codrington III, who wrote in 2020. More than 2 centuries after it was designed to empower Southern whites, the Electoral College continues to do just that. The current system has a distinct adverse impact on black voters, diluting their political power. The PragerU Kids videos does not mention slavery or its role in the founders' decision to create the Electoral College. That doesn't surprise me, considering they just said that they approve how black people benefit from slavery. Like, they literally are putting that in the curriculum, and now they just got approved for this. And really, at the end of the day, this PragerU thing is steeped in anti-blackness. An examination of PragerU Kids by Digit magazine last month found that PragerU videos, widely popular in right-wing circles, reject diversity and equality of genders, races, and sexuality, support capitalism and the free market economy, and heavily relate their views to Christianity. The Southern Poverty Law Center also conducted an examination of PragerU, finding the organization frequently rewrites history. The company, for instance, has rejected the well-established fact that Richard Nixon employed the Southern strategy to appeal to racist voters in the U.S. South in order to win his election. PragerU seems to be yet another node on the internet connecting conservative media consumers to the dark corners of the extreme right, the SPLC analysis concluded. Critics on social media blasted the decision to allow PragerU Kids materials in Florida schools. The decision to allow PragerU materials is the latest example showing that Florida Republican Governor Ron DeSnowflake hasn't removed political ideology schools, but rather amplified conservative Christian ideologies that he favors, wrote Mike Hicksonbaugh, senior investigative reporter for NBC News. The point of DeSantis's and other conservative attacks on public schools with the gay and trans conspiracy theories was always to oppress vulnerable groups, but also to weaken public education and create a controlled market for ideology-driven curricula producers, said political analyst Jared Yates Sexton. This is Christian nationalist indoctrination making its way into public school classrooms, wrote Mindy Tackett, a journalist who tracks Christian nationalist movements across the U.S. So that was the whole article right there. But yeah, again, I'm not surprised that this is going on in Florida, number one. Two, they just said that black people benefited from slavery while they were enslaved, which was completely false. And now this is coming right behind it. So literally, this is like I said, it's an indoctrination thing. And again, this, like I said before in the past, this is not, it's steeped in anti-blackness, but they're pushing it more towards the white children, the white kids. That's who they want to indoctrinate more than anything. Because I think they're seeing that what's going on right now is starting to crack a little bit. Not completely, but it's cracking. And they have to mend those cracks. They have to make it whole again because it's falling apart. So to keep it going, they could continue to push more lies. How many times have I told you that they are their ancestors? Everything Dennis Prager and all those underling degenerates over there at PragerU are doing right now is to push onto the kids. And the first place to do is the kids, because the parents, the adults, have already had their minds made up. They're either going to be one way or another. The kids don't know. They got to get them while their minds are still developing and while they're impressionable, because that's the ripe and right time to attack. I feel like we're in a simulation. Better place to kick it off than in Florida, where you have the Satan as the governor, Mr. quote unquote anti-woke. I used to think that Ron DeSantis was going to actually be Donald Trump's biggest competition in this upcoming election, but the way it's looking right now, I highly doubt that's going to be the case. And I guess he needs something to fall back on. Same thing with ramen noodles. Not being Donald Trump's competition, but just being just a walking ball of hot air. Yeah, but I need to know from my people down in Florida, were you aware of this? Because this article was just sent to me and I didn't really see it trending anywhere, or I only had like maybe one person send it to me. It's not like people sent it to me in droves. But yeah, honestly, I think this is really going at more so the PC kids. That's who they're really, really going after. And if you are a black parent down there, now is the best time more than ever to get your kid out of them public schools and find a way to homeschool them. Because this is what they're implementing. Not what they're going to implement, what they are. It's been approved. They said this fall. And not only that, while it's talking about Florida, one of the statements clearly said states starting this fall, states around America are going to implement this same policy, or they're going to start implementing this stuff. It's just that Florida was the first place, as far as I know, to approve it. But there's going to be many more that's going to do it. So I'm out with you, and you have children in public schools right now. Ask them, what did they learn in school today, or ask them about PragerU Kids. Did anything come across their desk talking about that? and really examine what that is. Or better yet, show them this video so they can have an understanding of what it is. So when they see it, it's like, oh, okay, I know what's about to happen.
Children, our founding fathers knew that slavery was evil and wrong, and they knew that it would do terrible harm to the nation. They wanted it to end, but their first priority was getting all 13 colonies to unite as one country. The southern colonies were dependent on slave labor, and they wouldn't have joined a union that had banned it.
Are you okay with that?
I'm certainly not okay with slavery, but the founding fathers made a compromise to achieve something great: the making of the United States. It was America that began the conversation to end it. But Leo is correct that big problems need to be approached very carefully. Have you kids heard of William Lloyd Garrison?
No.
Nope.
He's an abolitionist like me, and he and I used to be friends, but we aren't any longer. We don't agree how to solve problems. William refuses all compromises, demands immediate change, and if he doesn't get what he wants, he likes to set things on fire.
Sounds familiar.
Sounds like you know the type.
Yeah, we've got that type in our time.
So, you're trying to work for change inside of the American system.
Precisely, Layla. Our system is wonderful, and the Constitution is a glorious liberty document. We just need to convince enough Americans to be true to it.